Hola, hola. I'm Trek with two Ks,
And I am 3D, and welcome to Metaverses the Other Side.
brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto Network. Just a heads up, this episode is before we had the idea of bringing the Twitter spaces to the Gentleman of Crypto Network. And so that's why we're talking about the stuff that we're talking about in this episode.
All right, today is Thursday, which is our new set day for hosting the metaverse, and our subjects are changing, relatively speaking, on just some like realizations or things that we're coming to and understanding as we have these discussions expand about the metaverse and what's going on inside of the, let's say, the development of metaverses, plural, in what is the blockchain related metaverses as well as the non-blockchain related metaverses. Because believe it or not, there are actually non-blockchain related metaverses that a lot of people are actually making the distinction between. And in all of that, to say there's opportunity to be able to build, to be able to create, whether we're talking about building a community, building some new kind of app on top of it, building some new kind of function. There's a number of ways to go about it, whether you're talking about what is it? No code, low code, or high code, which means you actually got to know how to code. Bam, there's my man. All right, no, hold on. I got to actually switch that to get you to be a co-host.
What up? What up?
Yo, okay. Yo, switch over to the co-host side. So Twitter did something where now, and I don't know if it was always like this, but I feel like it was not always like this, but maybe I wasn't paying attention, that you can only have 3 co-hosts. So that's a new thing now, or it's something that I just noticed now, I should say it that way. But nonetheless, you're here. I'm doing something on the other side. That's why you see the custodial L side. I'm going to talk to you about that later, by the way, in relation to the builder DAO.
All right.
But yeah, so I didn't really jump into the full on, but I kind of segued into. So if you want to, while I like do a couple of things on the back end to push out the notification a little bit more, if you want to get into the title and what like the thing was behind that, I'll let you handle that. And I'm going to be doing some stuff on the backside.
Uh, so basically, the good, the bad, the options, and we're talking about metaverses. Basically, we're at a point where there's a ton of good options, ton of bad options, and in general, a ton of options. Not just for getting into a metaverse or what metaverses are out there, but actually building the metaverse with or without code. And even nowadays, getting to a point where on the Metaverse Toolbox, there's even a little web app, I guess you could say, where without coding, you can code a solidity contract. So we're finally at that point. And with these options, there is going to be tons of various things going to come out. And I think that we just need to let people be aware and let them be aware that not everything is made the same. Not everything is going to be the same. And so we're at a point now where you can play around with different things and various factors, but you don't want to jump too hard on one metaverse that you haven't looked into, just simply because it could be a bad one. It might be more centralized than you realize or something like that, or not even on the blockchain at all and just blockchain connected. But that is part of the growing curve. You definitely get to these points in times where there are more options than where needed. And I do think that is awesome. We are going to, within another couple of years, we're going to start seeing some of these weed out, and then we'll just get down to the good. But for right now, yeah, we have the good and the bad and all these various options. But yeah, like the metaverses that are going on right now, like so many of them are, they're not changing, they're evolving, where we're starting to see ones that came out with a specific purpose changed their purpose, and other ones that just came out for no real reason starting to fade away. And it's just cool how the market naturally takes these things in different directions. And then like the government's trying to come in and say, no proof of work, no proof of work. And right now, the number of metaverses that run on a proof of works are almost all, because proof of work is the same as having just servers running. I don't see them coming after metaverses specifically, but when they realize that they're all the same thing, we might have that as a thing. So being able to get your metaverse built up on a stake chain might not be too bad. And the great thing is all the stake chains that are major players for NFTs, they're all being pushed in a way to where like their back end and stuff like that is starting to be able to handle more metaversal stuff. Out of these different options we're seeing, I hope we do see more of like native on-chain metaverses instead of just the usual ones that we have right now, which are basically Web 2 connected with Web 3 as metaverses.
Okay, that's great. You just said something that I wanted to bring in on this part of the good, the bad, and then recognizing that there are options for how things are going to move forward. Something I said, I think last spaces that we had about how there's going to be the dark side as we have with darknet, and then we have clearnet. I think the same thing's going to happen in regards to the metaverses. But more interestingly, and I'm saying this on the end of, there are going to be the metaverses like blockchains that are, I don't think the trend has just started, but I think that there's going to be a move to make blockchains that turn off and on. So what Helium is doing, what Solana is doing, I don't know who else has that capability and function and argues it out however they want to argue it out. I'm not defending security, scaling, none of that. I'm just saying the function to be able to turn off and on your blockchain is something that we're going to see in metaverses where they will be able to be turned off and on. And I look at it as far as and you made the point about how there's the Web 2 related technologies and things that are adding in on the side, blockchain related features and functions, right? So looking at it where if you build a metaverse on a blockchain, what are these questions? I would argue, and this will probably be more directed at like creators, dev folks. If you are going to build in an ecosystem that can be turned off and on outside of you, you might want to think about that as a question of, do I actually want to spend the time building here? And I would argue for what we've seen play out in social media, for what we've seen play out in how websites are doing their thing for arguably censoring people, arguably protecting people, but nonetheless, there is a feature or there is a function that allows them to turn people's voices or people's ability to promote content or information, whichever way you want to label it, out. Right?
Yeah.
There was something I was reading the other day. There's a website that Cloudflare, they stopped hosting or something for a minute. And then and mind you, it was like one of those, no, I can't even say it that way. The website was used to troll and stalk people, and they targeted certain groups that definitely, it isn't something that I would encourage people to do. Like, for all the things that you could do in this world to build and help people, this is like one of the worst things that you could do, in my opinion, totally my opinion. And so the US company, I think it was Cloudflare, they ended up dropping them eventually. And so they had made a backup for their whole domain hosting and everything with this Russian company. And then the Russian company just dropped them. Now, arguably, right, technology isn't bad. This is the other part that I think we're not acknowledging in the full scope, but I think plays into the good, the bad of the technology isn't bad. It's what is the human being or the persons behind it? Like, what are they moving towards? Case in point, this particular website that got shut down, like the dude literally made it to stalk and troll people. And then his user base got really crazy off of it. For people who like agreed with that kind of / mentality, I would imagine if you saw X amount of those people in like real life, you would probably never even think that they were that kind of person. Cause you know how they talk about thumb warriors, how people are like, you're behind the screen. So like you can talk all the shit you want to talk. I think metaverses are going to bring those people out too. Those people are already there. Think about what's the joint on Oculus. I can't remember the name. It's Alt World or Alt something. And some of them
Space.
Say it here.
Alt Space.
Also, yeah, yo, some of them little kids be dicks, man. Straight dicks. And I'm calling them dicks because they're being dicks, okay? But it's still one of those, if we say this technology is open, if we say this technology is about, I don't want to say the word inclusiveness, but I'm going to use the word inclusiveness in this regard, as far as everyone has the opportunity to be in, is the function to turn off and on a website or a metaverse or a domain a bad or good thing? For how I'm looking at it, I'm not 100% sold on it being a bad thing, but I'm also questioning. I'm still not like A-okay on the boat of it being a good thing and like a necessary evil, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, quote, you want to like protect people, but what I find is when people use we need to protect for X, Y, and Z, it's like, at what point do you take off the guardrails and let adults be adults or let people be people?
Yeah.
And granted, there are certain, not minutiae, but there are certain things of like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you can't go out doing certain things. I think we understand what certain things are, but that this level of I don't know if protectionism counts as the word that I'm looking for. And I think that some people have a actual, what's the word I'm looking for? Genuine, I care. I want to protect people. And then there's the people who go, I want control and I can use protectionism as a virtue signal thing to get people to give up their ability of agency, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it definitely does.
And so that's the stuff that be getting me now, where I'm looking at the space a lot different for what's being pushed out and what's being popular and who's saying what as well.
Yeah. I was like, when it comes like turning on metaverse, I always feel like it should be like up to the. So like I can turn off the metaverse I'm playing or the crypto I'm using, but they shouldn't be able to turn it off on me. And that's when it comes down to, like you're saying, when do we let adults be adults, where if we can't turn off and on the metaverses other than just by turning off and on, like not going to it or not participating in it or whatever, we get to be that adult and whatever. So I'm sold on the point of, if people are telling me this blockchain can be turned on off, this metaverse is going to be turned off, on or off or whatever. And it's not something like, oh, I turned off my personal metaverse because I personally didn't want it running today. Then anything other than that, I'm going to be like, nah, bro, that's just excuses for, like you're saying, for the control. And unfortunately, like all throughout history, there's too many examples to show that's all it ever is going to be. Like, as far as governments can have been able to have control, they're going to take that control. And it's like, I remember when I was growing up, like we were young, like my grandparents would say stuff like, oh, you got to learn sometime type stuff about tons of things. And then my dad would say it about bad problems, not just good. My grandparents would say about anything good or bad. My dad's family would say just bad things. And then nowadays we're like, you almost never hear people talk about like that, even like that. And it's just, the more people think that, oh, this government or that's going to save me from anything and everything, and more help I'll have. And then it's really, you're not getting anything new. And this mentality definitely is going to spill over into cryptocurrencies, metaverses and stuff. But like I tell people, these things don't have to be inclusive. We don't have to include the peoples who are not going to be able to handle it. If we're going to have, you're going to have someone in a metaverse and they're going, oh man, this person's too close to me. Like it was Event Horizon, if I remember right, that first said in the side meter rule or something like that in the game, like in the actual metaverse. And so people did the pools closed thing, or they tried to do the pools closed thing in Event Horizon. And just because you could have one person standing by the pool and no one can get in, or you get a lot of people to completely go around the pool, no one can get in. And it took so very few people. That's the kind of stupidity that, like you're saying, like you always say, like the walled garden, unwalled garden. The walled garden is going to be full of bull crap like that, where your characters can't get too close to each other or whatever. And then the unwalled garden, it's going to be more like the old space. It's going to be a little bit more chaotic, a little more crazy. And I don't know.
All right, yeah, you said something and it's totally, I missed it just now. Okay, boom. So that's the point. I'm in another one on that one, but I am all for the technology is accessible to everyone. Now, then it gets into the whole, like, well, how are you going to use it thing? The technology works for you to be able to use it. However, your creativity and ingenuity comes up with it. Like, all right, shit, you're smart. But in relation to this whole thing of metaverses, websites, this thing of the not really the expansion, but the upgrading of the internet. Oh man, I wish you would have jumped in yesterday for the joint we did yesterday, because Reggie came in on the Wevolution. And you know how Reggie is about stuff, but he was making the point as far as like the Web3 thing is just the marketing. It's still just the internet. And I agree in that sense that the technology is being upgraded, but to the point that you were making about, do you have to be inclusive? What does the inclusion really mean? Oh, here's a fine line, right? In relation to the good, the bad, and the options. The technology is accessible to any and everyone, whether you're talking about low code, no code, or like high. Are we saying high code or deep code?
So I run it out of
No, I'm saying in regards to the coding thing, is it like no code, low code, and high code, or deep code?
Code ready.
Code ready? As
Yeah,
far
it
as
means you got to use it.
the person actually being able to code. Okay, so code ready. All right, back. So now to your point in relation to you don't have to include everyone, right? So you step back and say, all right, this technology is open for everybody. You have access to it. You can either somehow build or create as a community person, as I want to create something, build using low code, no code, or ready stuff, right? And this goes into the thing of, if what you see the other person doing, you don't agree with, which is funny for how the crypto space is as far as, oh, you made that? All right, well, I think I can do better. I'm going to fork off of what you did and make this. Or I don't like the name or whatever, so I'm going to do this thing over here. Or I want to make blah, blah, blah for, quote, this group or this type of people. So they won't let me in their group. Okay, you can go over and make your own thing. So like, why are you worried about the group? Why are you worried about that group?
That is always the question, right? Like, you always want to do somebody else.
Okay, so here's the funny part on that. Again, and looking at the history part of it is, at least in the US, we're shown when one group goes, okay, bet we don't get to play over in your thing, we'll go make our own stuff. The other group always gets mad and then looks to mess it up.
Yeah.
So I wonder how will that play out in the metaverse, in metaverses as we go forward, where there are certain things now, bro, that like I'm looking at for like the clickism
and the all boys club or the all girls club or the whatever you want to call it. And I'm just like, okay, how is this going to work going forward when the technology is more accessible? Like, we're literally seeing it move in like under 2-year periods. And if you're really squirrely and you're actually like hard on the tech side of it, you're seeing stuff move in less than 12 months. From it might not be clean, it might not be super user friendly, but we're seeing the technology move at such a fast pace of iteration. What does it look like after 2025? Sorry, go ahead, bro.
I was just gonna say, yeah, like I get really jealous of some people because they'll pull up, like build up good applications, websites, tools, all. Like I was just looking at this one guy's metaverse the other, like throughout this past week, is this one guy, and it's all web based, right? But it's hard to explain. Like it almost like someone hand painted the whole thing with a crayon, but it's all clickable. Some of the stuff's invisible and bitmapped. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like for what it looks like crap, but like in reality, it had onboarded NFTs, blending NFT systems to enter other areas. And it was like, oh, it just blew my mind for a minute. It was like, holy shit, this was completely done in HTML and JavaScript. And it took him days to come up with this. And he moved it. I was like, man, I get so jealous of him. But like I was saying, it looks like the whole thing was made with a crayon. But as in the technology side of things, it's actually really fucking advanced. And like coming to 2025, it's going to go from where it looks like it's made with a crayon, but really advanced to, hey, it looks like it was made by a first-in college student at 3D tech school or something, but it was made in 24 hours and it was made partially with AI, and person just had to type in a prompt to build the whole fucking thing. That's the kind of technology I'm expecting to see. Fuck, I'm not gonna lie. I've been downloading and messing with a new AI tool that's actually the AI itself. And I'm trying to figure out how to, like, I make fake humans and I've turned a couple of them to life where they say certain, so I'm going above and beyond that. I'm going to try to make them real people, make them their own chat system where you can actually chat with them and they will physically talk like you're in live chat, like a live stream or something. It'll be fucking crazy. But the technology is already here and it's just a matter of playing with it. And if this is what we have today, by 2024, we'll have AI building AI stuff to make all of these applications and stuff more streamlined. And now when we get into that phrase, I will always do worry about it. One of the programs I use, they put a secret watermark in the image so they can prove it's theirs, like that AI made it or whatever. And that's what we're going to do when these files start becoming so huge where the watermarks are taking up more space than what we see.
Okay, yo, you must have been reading about mine over the day. You went into the AI thing. And man, okay. And I'm gonna bring this to the folks who are listening to this later on about what does this mean in relation to the good, the bad, and the options, right? Again, like I said at the start point of this, like if you are looking to build, if you are looking to create, there are these no code, low code, and code ready options, right? And the AI stuff for what's going on, for what I'm seeing, like it is getting crazy out here for what you can get the AI to do there's a couple of models being tested out right now for being able to get the AI to write you blogs, to write articles, to make YouTube videos. The videos ain't like crazy long, but the fact that you can get the AI to pull the images together or even write out what the copy would be for it, that's a now thing. We're not even at 2023 yet. Granted, we're short a couple of months as time of this recording. But this is the other part that gets me when I say this thing of the barrier to entry is being lowered at the technical level and at the monetary level. And arguably, this is a quote, good thing for the expansion of technology. Arguably, it is a good thing for people's access to these open source technologies, even to these closed source technologies, because why? They're going to be on something like Mozilla or be on Facebook or whatever. And they're going to allow people to do certain levels of experimentation and creativity and building and blah, blah, blah. But I also look at it and go, there's a cycle to it where you have the early folks who mess around with it. It makes some streamlining upgrades. It gets into a certain mode of bigger adoption, larger use space. If it can make it to commercialization as a technology where it is incorporated in everything, it'll go through that. But the vast majority of what we see now, and for some people, what we're saying might sound like, oh man, this is like way over our head, or this is like too much of a vast space. I can't catch up with that, or I'm late. I promise you, you are not late. I am so 100% on. You are not late, because there's still more time for the kinks to be worked out, for the revenue models to be figured out, for the new people that are going to come in like another 4 years and another 5 years and another 10 years. Most people think like when it comes to this tech thing, it's only us over here in the US, or it's only people in like first tier countries. So you're thinking like someplace in Europe or whatever, but it's not. And then the other part too, as far as this thing of like building communities, the great thing that I would say arguably, hey, what's going on in relation to the technology and building communities, right? You're building your environment as far as this drag and drop with low code, no code options. You make your metaverse. You're going out and connecting with people outside of your zip code, your state, your city, your country. The ability to build a community in this day and age, because of technology, has scaled 100x. No questions about it. And with that, I don't want to say like the non-techie folks, but I don't think people really fully understand the gravity of that. And going into what you were talking about 3D, as far as the using the AIs to make them be more human in regards to having like dialogue and being able to communicate in a more effective conversation piece and stuff. Again, we're just here at the end of 2022. These technologies exist now. Anyone who has internet access can mess with this stuff right now. And when I say internet access, I don't mean you have internet like at home, or it's like you have the smartphone in your pocket. If you got to go to a McDonald's, a Burger King, a public library, you can get to use the internet for 1 hour or 30 minutes a day, but you use that shit as the most effective time that you connect to the internet to either learn some shit, create some shit. To me, that's still internet access, because you'd be surprised what people will come up with when they know they have a limited time of access to be able to like do stuff and be the most effective in it, or efficient. That's the word I'm looking for. But my point going forward is that I think another thing that we'll start to see after 2025, and I'm going to say 3D, you're probably going to be on it, bro, is folks making AIs to populate metaverses, just like what we do in the video games, right? I don't even say Final Fantasy. I'm trying to remember the name of that damn game that I used to play forever and ever. And then you can walk up on your own quest, but you have the computer created characters when you go to the village, or you have to talk to somebody. It's going to be the same shit in metaverses. Folks are going to make AI be avatars and characters in metaverses. So you're going to come into somebody's thing and they'll have you're probably going to have people who have whole families in a metaverse. You're going to have folks who's going to have like whole cities built out. At the first part is going to start on the commercialization level. I also see some gamification stuff going on like on a business note, if you have a metaverse and then you want to get like an official partnership with whatever kind of real world business there is, but they're like, oh no, we need a metaverse that has a population activity of blah, blah, blah number. Somewhere after 2025, someone's going to figure out how to generate, just like what we do now with the social media shit. Oh, you got that many views, but if you know how to dig in on the back end, you know that it's out of a bot farm, you know that it's a light farm, like whatever. But I see that as a thing moving into the metaverse space now. Again, coming back to this title of the good, the bad, and the options. Arguably, this is a bad thing. But arguably, it is also a good thing, depending on what it is you as the person or person are trying to do. If you're trying to flex your skills and what you've learned to be able to create, this is arguably a good thing. But if you're over here trying to like take advantage of people and use coercion or do things to harm individuals or people in groups, yeah. Now we talking about, is X amount of what you're doing already illegal in the regular law in real world? But this is going to be a part of what I would argue, let me say it that way. I would argue this is going to be a part of the space moving forward, which also then gets me into another thing that I keep hearing people talk about as far as like Web3 is about owning the data. And I'm still at a loss as to what owning the data really means in functionality, as far as what does this mean to my everyday life? What does it mean to, how do I like have control of quote, this data that I generated? And then what does it mean to utilize it? Where's the utility for owning my data? And why is no one talking about the privacy issues that come with that, as well as what's the other one? There's another thing that I thought of the other day in relation to this whole owning data and the KYC aspect that has to be a part of it in order for the quote ownership of data to be a thing. Depending on which side of the fence you're on, owning your data in this future tense or sense of digital identity can be argued as a bad thing, especially if you don't care for the digital stuff to begin with. Again, like I know somebody's probably listening to this and be like, all right, where are you going? How does this relate to metaverses? Because for the metaverses to work and for this whole thing of ownership of your data to work, there has to be some connection in real world and virtual of that person or individual, which then gets into another thing about what 3D was talking about, which is the AI, and then using those to make personas and entities. We already have certain squirrely agencies across the globe, some are better than others, who have been stealing Facebook identities for years and mix and match and make people out of them. Like that, let me not run down that rabbit hole. But point being is, I see this moving over in this space. I dumped a lot of stuff. Pretty Garter, thank you for joining. You want to jump in and say something, or you got a question?
Oh no, just saying hi. I think I got a invitation to speak, so I accepted and just wanted to see what you guys are talking about. Well, how are you guys doing?
Life is happening. We are, my cohort here, 3D, and myself, we've been basically holding these Twitter spaces and talking about metaverses, Aura, and like what we're seeing, what we're working on, and like the direction that we think things are moving towards or have a possibility of being in the future of it. And yeah, that's
From
what
what I was I'm sorry, back. From what I was hearing, it sounds like you have mixed feelings about it, right? Or what are your general feelings about it? Good? Bad? Both?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both, because there's tons of good ones out there. They're trying to go to decentralization and trying to go to censorship resistant. And there are some that are just the exact opposite, where they're all like completely centralized and completely wanting to have control over their users. And yeah, I'm glad you can speak, because I know like you do community building and stuff. And he was talking about community building at the time he came in. And like something that we've talked about, like the metaverses, they basically have a lot more no code options. And, you know, what Dane, she does all the coin stuff, where it's getting easier and easier to do all that kind of stuff, but we're going into further bigger environments like lands and worlds and metaverses and stuff. And so like when he was saying like owning your data on Web3 with metaverses, we think metaverses are going to replace the web page. And that can be really great because that just shows you're no longer just presenting someone a web page, you're presenting someone with a web space for them to interact with your web page. And whether it's for monetization or keeping someone in for a while or whatever, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's the new wave of web adoption. And then, so like owning your data, being able to sell the number of viewers, all your metrics you normally would, but in a metaversal space, that also means that you have better opportunities like live streamers. Normally when a live live streams a website, not much, but if they live stream a video game, it's 100% effort. More people tune in. Its attention rate is higher. And so imagine if that video game is your website. Now you can sell this good data that you are collecting through the blockchain information, through the metric systems, and then with the like Solidity code and stuff like this is getting to a point where we actually have a metaversal toolbox of options for people to use that start with no code, go up to code ready. And there is a no code Solidity contract builder. So you can actually write contracts without any code, and it's like a game. And then by the time you get done, you can actually have a game on your website. That means just allows more and more options. And we're starting to see this metaverse tech snowball into really tons of options, which is why it's definitely there, is because, yeah, this is options, tons of them. So we're in the weeding stage, probably like in the next year or so, we'll start seeing a lot of these bad metaverses weed out and good metaverses stay strong.
Yeah, that would be ideal because, when something new starts, of course, a lot of people will want to jump on a bandwagon, and not all of them with good intentions. Then that oversaturates whatever it is. It may be, in this instance, it's a metaverse. But yeah, it'd be good if the good projects, the good intentions stay strong, and then the shitty ones get weeded out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another example of what are we saying is good, right? Or what are we saying is shitty? And I don't remember the name for this site, but the example of, like I was saying in the beginning, I don't remember what part you came in on. The dude who made the site for stalking people, he just his whole domain and everything dropped from the Russian-based web host company he was using. But like, he started off with one group and then he expanded into other groups, and the user base of people who flocked to his website grew exponentially. Arguably, those people felt that site was, quote, a good thing, right? Because they didn't agree with like certain lifestyles, or they didn't agree with certain views on identity or whatever. That I don't remember the name of it, but I also don't want to say certain words. But I think you understand what I'm talking about, what the site was doing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is the part that gets me about the way that we can argue or debate about, more so, what is the quote good, the bad of this technology. It is available to anyone if you have the wherewithal to learn how to use it for what you want, right? So the technology isn't bad. Like it isn't bad that you have domains. Our domains aren't bad. Websites aren't bad. It's the personality and the culture or the group. I can't even say it that way. Like
Direction. The purpose of it.
no, because like in the example that I just used, like I said, like the folks who flocked to his site, and I would imagine if you saw the majority of those people outside, like face to face, the majority of them, you wouldn't even think they were like that. Like they were people using a site like that to target and to troll and stalk people. You know what I'm saying? And so it's the thing that you said about like, how do you feel about this internet or this metaverse or this technology thing? I agree with 3D in that it's a mixed bag, in that I'm a techie person. I've been a nerdy techie kid for many years, decades at this point.
But I also know enough to be like, I can still be afraid of this thing, even though I think X amount of the stuff is cool. And that's where I'm at right now, where I like that smartphones are a thing. Do I always want to be connected though? Am I annoyed that I can't turn off my phone now and take the battery out? Yes. Like it sounds like a little thing that doesn't really matter, but for folks who are paying more attention to like how the technology is being integrated to always be on and always have you connected, it's arguably not a good thing.
No, it's unsettling.
Yeah. It's, what is the word? So, 3D, what are we at? Like month 2 going into month 3 for hosting these?
Yeah.
Okay. So month 2. All right. Yeah. So since doing these and having the conversations, having other people jump in, and then just seeing what we were seeing from what we're working on, what we're seeing in other parts of the space, I don't know if to say that I'm like hopeful in the sense of the prevailing goodwill and quote good nature of people will be the predominant user of this technology or these technologies, because it's like the internet is a combination of things, right? But at the same time, I also look and go, is it 100% right to limit, throttle, exclude people's access? I'm still out on that question. I'm not necessarily leaning towards, yes, this is a good thing. Obviously, we have laws and stuff for a reason. Some people decide that even on the basic of like human nature and respectableness, they don't want to follow it. So I know laws work for a reason, or laws are in effect for a reason. And like people of those views or personalities. But this technology thing, it still throws me for a loop. What's going on, GE? Is there supposed to be another letter after that E? Nonetheless,
Yeah,
thanks
it says the Ghetto Show.
All right. What's going on with the Ghetto Show? I appreciate you for jumping in. Damn. Okay. Yo, I swear the time be flying. I appreciate y'all for coming in. We only do these for an hour once a week. We got like less than 10 minutes. If somebody has a question, they have a thought, just to recap it real quick. The thing on this one was metaverses in plural, the good, the bad, and the options. And we ran down some like dystopian type examples of how this space is going to move going forward. And then we also have some other examples of you can build and create with low code and no code options today, from anything from AI to even doing like smart contracts and stuff. So good stuff. But the idea is that there are options out here today, and the technical barrier and the economic barrier are being lowered, I would argue, year for year, if not like every 6 months. But if anybody want to throw anything out there, 3D, Pretty Gator, The Ghetto Show, anybody? Sorry. Pretty
That's all
Garth.
good. I lost what I was going to say. Yeah, with the technology coming out, it's just going to get easier to produce bigger, higher quality stuff in a digital space. It's also going to get easier to move around, transport it, store it. IPFS, when it first came out, I remember people didn't even know about it. It just flew under the radar for a decade. The only people that really knew anything about it were like the people actually using it. And now, look at it, it's huge. I see the Ghetto Show request. Let's see if we can get him in or get them on. I don't know if that was anything. Proof loop.
If I have to step down so that they, okay, never mind.
Yeah, the Ghetto Show going on.
Good people, what's going on?
Was
Nothing much trick, man. This ghetto crypto won't be chopping up with you on Instagram all the time. I took the crypto out and put show on there. But
yo, what's going on, bro?
man, nothing major. I'm trying to be more broad, but I just want to talk about crypto all the time. How that shit go. But I came in late, man, because I'm doing some sports betting and shit. So I was on the show with my partner. But when I came in, I heard you guys talking about everything being more accessible to everybody in the future, which it will be. By you all saying that, I have a question for you. Once that starts, do you all see a lot more patents being made, or is it going to be more of an open source for everybody to use, and it's not a patent going around? You know how Reggie stuff is going right now with the DeFi. Do you all see it being more patents, to where you can only use Apple's open source for Apple's stuff, and it can't be used for anybody else's, and you can't try to do certain things that you can do in Apple or on different type of blockchain? Do you all see that coming in?
I do see there are going to be more patents for things as the script coding gets better in a certain type, like the types of patent we're going to see, it's going to be more specific to more specific types of the database or whatever, or the actual functionality. But we already starting to see like more separated gateways where Spatial runs off of all their backend, Event Horizon runs off of Meta's backend. So we're already starting to see where some of them only work with some things. And I do believe there are even like metaversal areas that are only for Apple, Macintosh based systems only. So if you have an iPhone or a Mac, and you'll actually be able to interact with it, but everybody with Android, Windows, or Linux are experienced out. But how much, as in like with Reggie, how much more patent are we going to see? I think it's going to be dramatically less compared to the first 15 years of web internet. The amount of patenting is just going to be way less, because we saw so many patents made for tech stuff already that just completely ended up becoming useless or turned into a public domain service, even against sometimes the patenter. So I think people are just going to want to more roll with the flow. And also there's going to be already people are trying to remove responsibility from themselves, especially within like crypto space, NFTs, all these different things. And so there's a lot more people are already going to I'm going to use something that's more open source, or I'm going to build something and open source it, make it free, a freeware or shareware or something like that. So that way they don't have to have responsibility tied to them as a developer or creator or co-owner or anything like that. And with that type of future coming forward, we're going to see a lot more of that. That means if you do see something you like that someone has, it may be easier for you to recreate it without getting in trouble. And in some cases that can even help side promote, like we've seen with some NFT projects, where a new NFT project will use an old NFT's contract and say the fact that they're using it's just a fork of the contract, and it actually helped promote additional NFT projects with their own.
All right, so I'll add in on this to say, hey, this might sound like a very far stretch, right? I question what the tornado cast situation for the dev that got arrested over in Europe will have on the coder level community, because the argument is being made that what they did is working to censor speech, if we're saying code is speech. And since X amount of the open source side of the space is just folks who like to tinker, I don't know what it would look like down the road as far as, do more people jump into the, like, I'm just throwing this out here in the open sea common creatives use case, versus where, all right, I think two things are going to happen here. One is there will be a walled garden side. There will be the outside of the walled garden side, but how the patents will work as far as, is it going to be the big companies, or is it going to be one of those, like somebody who sees ahead of what's going on and they're going to throw their patent out there first before the companies catch up? Or are more people going to try to do the Satoshi route and just throw out code out there and then you see if it get adopted? I'm not 100% certain, but I do see there's the closed garden, the walled garden, and then there's the stuff outside. I honestly think that metaverses are going to follow the trajectory of websites. It's ClearNet, and then there's DarkNet. Majority of shit is outside in DarkNet, but most people will only know ClearNet. And the same thing will happen in metaverses. But I'm looking at it like after 2030, where it really starts to set in Like, all right, I don't even know what to call it, but if you say dark verse is equal to dark net, the clear net version of the quote, okay places to be in the metaverse, that's going to be the smaller side, but there's going to be a whole Wild West joint. I do also think though, that a lot of the tech companies are going to do things to integrate open source technologies on their back end, but they're going to do some gate guard shit at the same time. That's just how I'm thinking about it.
I can dig it.
But no absolutes.
Now, y'all on here too long. I understand exactly everything you all just said. I just wanted to get you all's perspective on it. My last statement I want to say before I know y'all about to take off. Has anybody ever heard of NPCs? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so Trek, I'm gonna send you this link from the site Decrypt. This article on there talking about how foreign players and overseas players and people in third world countries, they're going to be using them as NPCs in metaverse games. So just basically take the GTA, how everybody is on there on the servers or whatnot, and say you're in GTA, you're walking around and you actually see somebody on the sidewalk talking, and you would think that's be a bot, but it would actually be a real person being used as an NPC, a non-playable character in the game. It's on Decrypt. I'll send you the link to it, but it's on there, and it's just saying how they're going to start paying people to actually be real characters in video games and pay them like $1 or something per day as an NPC. So instead of it being a bot in the game, it'll actually be actual people in the game that just sitting there talking, not doing nothing. So I see all that as a real big dystopia, to be honest with you.
I saw the headline, but I haven't read it yet. Where it said the pores will be NPCs and metaverses.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, yo, that is so. See, you missed the part that we were talking about AIs, and I was saying, I was saying that. See, I went the other way. Okay, all right. We running a couple of minutes over, but I'm gonna make a connection on something. Like how we talk about people have quote jobs now that can be replaced by like computers and stuff. I don't know what the timeline or what the shelf life would be on that model of using them as NPCs, but I imagine that as soon as the AI gets good enough on the physical of the avatar, the visual of how you see it, and more so on the ability to converse, that's going to be the key thing of it, the ability to converse. That revenue model, I can't see that lasting too long.
Oh yeah,
Get it. But
they are. If you download, they already have. Just a blockchain. It's Senso. I think on about on Qcoin or something. But yeah, they have a AI that has a full-fledged fucking conversation with you. So I feel exactly where you're coming from.
So I'm gonna bring it to a close because we ran a couple over. But I appreciate you for jumping in. And I want to say for the folks who make it to the end of this, who listen to this later on, like this is what we were trying to make the point of about metaverses, the good, the bad, and the option. The way this thing is going to go, the space is going to develop going forward, is going to be a number of different things that some people might argue are good, some people might argue are bad, depending on how much you really pay attention to the technology. You will either have limited options or you will have a plethora of options, whether you understand how to do low code stuff, no code stuff. Definitely, if you understand how to code, you will not be in the same, let's say, limiting box as non-coding people. The other thing that I want to throw out there is what started me in 3D on this whole thing was we are doing these webinars that talk about metaverses, and we just rebranded it to Metaverses, the Cliff Notes of, what is it? The Cliff Notes of Web3. And this webinar that we do now, which is like once a month, usually setting up through Eventbrite, basically we do an introduction on the early stuff of metaverses up to where we are now, the types of things that you could do to monetize metaverses, understanding the difference between an open and closed market, a crypto related market and a non-crypto related market, as well as things about like wallet security. That's originally what we started on with this 2 months ago. And here's where we are now in a bigger conversation about the development of metaverses. But we do want to throw that out there to folks. If you don't know anything, or if you do know some things, but there's some questions you might have, you can definitely check out how we break down the cliff notes of the metaverses as it relates to the bigger Web3. And we're also working, and also we have the website up that is called Metaverse Toolbox. It is pretty much a combination of open source and open source free / low cost options of being able to create and build that are like no code, low code, and like code ready options. We really tried to focus on low code and no code options that were free and open source. And for how it looks now compared to when we first started, it has definitely grown in regards to the list. So for folks who are interested in either being a creator of some kind of tech space or building out communities, you might want to check out that list. It is on IPFS. We got to figure out a way to make that like searchable on some other way on 3D. So sorry about the ramble, but yeah, I appreciate the folks who came out, and please do, if you're interested, check out the Metaverse Toolbox. DM me and I can send you the link for it, because we put it on IPFS. So it might not be the easiest searchable thing. And then for the webinar, I'll end up start posting stuff probably tomorrow, because I didn't set up the Eventbrite link yet. But other than that, folks, have a good night and thank y'all. You got any words, 3D, or are you good?
No, I'm good, bro. That was a great ending.
All right, folks, have a good one.